Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Oxnard Live. I'm your host, Daniel Chavez Jr. Well, the month of March is Women's History Month, and what a better way to kick off the month of March than to be speaking with Oxnard Police Department's first female assistant police chief. She wasn't born and raised here, but her roots run very deep in the community and the community that sometimes gets overlooked. But I don't want to give away everything. Let's speak to the person for tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Assistant Police Chief Denise Shadinger.
Hello, thank you for having me here today.
Welcome, Chief. I'm glad that you are joining us tonight in this conversation. Um, so, real quick, you weren't born here, so when did you actually come to the city of Oxnard?
I came back to the city of Oxnard with my mom and brother when just before the fourth grade started. So my mom was raised here in the city of Oxnard. Her family's from the city of Oxnard, and she brought us back here after my parents were divorced. And I started the fourth grade at Haycox Elementary. Went through the school system there until I went to junior high, and I was in that weird boundary area, which I'm sure a lot of people, still have to deal with that live in the Southwinds community, where you're close to EO Green Elementary, but somehow you go to Blackstock Junior High School. So I ended up going to Blackstock Junior High School for my middle school years, and then came back to Hueneme High School and went to high school at Hueneme High School.
Awesome. See, the fact that you said Hueneme High School makes me only like this even more. I graduated from Hueneme High School, and then a lot of times when I have the guests, we always ask, like, well, which high school did you go to? Because you know as well as I know, our rivals are CI. So
That is true, which made it a little weird because I went to Blackstock. So most of the people I went to junior high school with went on to Channel Islands High School, and only a couple of us went back and attended Hueneme High School. So
that's
there's
pretty
that
funny.
a weird school boundary. I don't think anybody understands it down there, but
You know, I used to work for the Hueneme School District, which Haycox and EO Green and Blackstock are part of. And yeah, that was always the biggest question as to which school do I belong to? I live here, but it was even as weird as saying like your neighbor two doors down would be belong to a different school than you would, even though you guys are in
exactly.
the exact same block. Very weird stuff. But okay, so you grew up in South Oxnard, which is really great. Because a lot of times South Oxnard is an overlooked community. It's not very many people, pay attention to South Oxnard. So you actually have roots in South Oxnard. Has that made a difference in you growing up and advocating or working towards improving South Oxnard?
I think it definitely does. I see a lot of the concerns that still, 30 years later, residents who live in South Oxnard have. I remember living in the apartments on Perkins and the apartments on South J Street. And, I'd leave with my mom to go do laundry at one of the local laundromats. And the biggest concern coming back was, are we going to get a parking spot close to our apartment? And that is still one of the major concerns in the Southwinds community specifically. But it did make a difference when I came here to work at the police department. I love working in the south area of Oxnard. Everywhere south of Bar, I'm really familiar with the streets there. I kind of understand the concerns in the community, that they have just quality of life issues, not necessarily related to crime or, police department issues per se. I always felt very comfortable working there, and I just really enjoy the people and the community. So I think that definitely had a perspective in where I wanted to work at the police department.
And I'm glad that you brought that up because I'm very curious as to what motivated you to consider the police department. Was there an officer, or was it just something in you that you really wanted to help people that motivated you to go towards law enforcement?
Actually, I had no idea that I wanted to work in law enforcement at any capacity. It wasn't something I had thought of. I don't have any law enforcement in my family. I didn't have much experience meeting with anyone in law enforcement or knew anyone that worked in law enforcement. However, when I was a young adult, a friend of mine wanted to do the Reserve Academy, which at the time was sponsored through Ventura College. And you put in for it like a college class, you paid for the course, you attended the course, and upon graduation, you were eligible to apply to police departments to work as a reserve, which is basically doing the same thing that an officer does, but you volunteer your time and you do it for free. She wanted to do the academy. She wanted somebody to go through with her. And she asked me if I would do it kind of like the buddy system, didn't want to do it by herself. So I said, sure, that sounds fun. I don't have anything going on. Let's do it. That sounds really cool. That's how I became introduced to law enforcement, what police officers do, how they work in the community. And I think that drew my interest to it immediately. And the fact that the job is so diverse. You do a different thing every day when you're working a patrol. You get the opportunity to work outside. You get the opportunity to really talk and connect and interact with people. And that's really what drew my interest to law enforcement.
Now, as a child or growing up in South Oxnard, um, was there ever those images that you wanted to stay away from officers? I know back in the day, people used to be very not anti-police, but they kept their distance from law enforcement. If they didn't have to interact, they didn't interact. Um, did you have any of those feelings growing up? And if so, did that change once you went through the Reserve Academy program?
Growing up, I didn't have any interaction with law enforcement down in the Southlands community. There wasn't the community engagement that there is now with the police department. And I really think that was all across the board, law enforcement in general. You saw the police car and you just kind of stayed away because if you were being contacted by the police, you were in trouble. So there really wasn't the engagement that there is now. I think that's changed just through policing in general, not necessarily because of me going through the Reserve Academy did it change my perception, because although I did see you could help and work in the community, it didn't really change probably how the community saw law enforcement at that time.
Now, what did your mom think when you decided to go through the Reserve Academy?
My mom has always been probably the biggest supporter that I've had. She really instilled in me the work ethic that I have now. She raised my brother and I as being a single parent and, living in Southlands and doing everything she could to make sure that we got what we needed. And a lot of the times, maybe what we didn't need, but we wanted as kids growing up. And she really instilled in me a strong work ethic. So I think she was very proud to see that I wanted to try something new and get outside my comfort zone and go through the Reserve Academy. I don't think she necessarily knew that it was going to lead to me being where I am today, but she's definitely very proud of what I've accomplished.
So, how long were you in the Reserve program before applying and becoming a sworn police officer with Oxnard?
Well, the Reserve Academy itself is about a semester long. And right at the end of graduation, I applied to the Santa Paula Police Department and was hired as a reserve with them. And their hiring process was give or take about 6 months. So I got hired about mid 1995, and I was a reserve with them for about 6 months. And right at the end of 1995, I learned that I had applied for the Oxnard Police Department and the Los Angeles Police Department at the same time. And the Oxnard Police Department gave me a job offer, and I started the academy. I had to go through another academy in January of 1996.
Now, how long is the okay? So now you have experience in both the Reserve Academy and for the sworn personnel. Any differences between them as far as length time, the amount of information that's instilled, the training?
There's definitely a big difference. The Reserve Academy was 3 nights a week and all day Saturday. And the regular academy, the full-time academy, is Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. till 5 a.m. sometimes, or I'm sorry, 5 p.m. or a little later. You did have some nights and some Saturdays that you came in for some of the scenario-based training, but it's definitely, I'd say the Reserve Academy is kind of Academy light because you touched on a lot of the topics, you got a lot of the same training, but the full-time academy is definitely more intense. There is more intense physical training, defensive tactic training, driving training, firearms training. We do a lot of training related to laws and that type of stuff, how certain laws apply, arrest and procedure. So it's definitely a lot more intense.
Now, when you started with the department, that was back in 95, 96, you served in multiple positions, and a few positions were the patrol officer, which I'm assuming many end up starting off as. Then you were part of the bicycle team. Then you were a field training officer, canine handler, as well as a trauma support team, and a member of the department's honor guard. So tell me about a little bit about all of those positions that you held, and then the experiences that you gained from them.
Well, the bicycle team is something that you do as a collateral assignment. You get trained. You work on a police mountain bike. You ride in the community. There's some training, a training component that comes with that, and you get to work a lot of the special events, a lot of the community engagement efforts, or some of the activities where beach patrol, that type of stuff. And you do it, you're still working patrol, but you sign up for those extra details because you have the training. When I became a field training officer, that is also still working patrol, responding to calls for service. However, now you have an academy recruit with you who's just graduated the academy, has no experience in law enforcement, and you're training them in all the actual real on-the-job training to apply their academy training. I did that. I have several trainees that still work here. I have one trainee that recently retired at the rank of commander, and another trainee that was recently promoted to the rank of sergeant. That's definitely one of the most fulfilling assignments that you can hold, because you really are shaping someone's career in law enforcement, and it's nothing better than to see them succeed and get promoted and move on. I worked as a canine handler. That's a little bit different in the patrol aspect. You're handling a lot of calls that are in progress, where the suspect may still be there. You're assisting our SWAT team on high-risk warrants. At the time, the dog that I had was narcotics trained, so you're searching for narcotics. Definitely another one of the really fun assignments. I mean, who doesn't love riding around? If you're an animal lover, and I am, riding around with the dog in your car, and a lot of community engagement happens with that, because everyone wants to come talk to you, and they really want to see your dog, but they will talk to you as well. So.
Well, that's always nice, right? When they want to speak with you, but they're just trying to get close to your partner.
Yeah, definitely. It definitely opens up the dialogue when people see the dog. They get really interested and want to come over and talk to you, and it breaks down a lot of barriers, I think.
So how long did you do the field training officer position?
I was in that for a couple of years. I don't know the exact length of time, but it was a couple of years doing that.
And the canine handler?
I was a canine handler for just over 7 years.
Now, we spoke a little bit before and brought up the fact that you were the first and so far the only female canine handler, correct?
Yes, I was the first female to be selected to the position. And I keep hoping that I will see another one before my career ends, because it's definitely a rewarding assignment in many aspects. So I definitely hope that there'll be another female officer who's interested in putting that in for that position.
Now, you are also part of the department's honor guard. Can you talk a little bit about that for those that may not understand what the honor guard is?
Sure. The Honor Guard represents the department at ceremonial events. That could be the event we do every year to honor fallen officers here at the police department. You wear a dress uniform. You'll see like the white braid, the white gloves. You'll see it's a little dressier than just the standard dress uniform that a regular officer would wear. We also represent the department at the funerals of fallen officers throughout the state. And a partner of mine, when I was in the Honor Guard, we actually went to New York City when two of the officers were killed there and represented the Oxnard Police Department at the funeral of those officers. So it really is a prestigious yet somber assignment. You are going to a lot of funerals. Probably most of the ceremonies that you attend are related to someone passing in the line of duty.
So let me ask, because you actually, since your time being with the department, you actually broke multiple barriers. We mentioned the canine handler, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you were also the first female commander.
Yes, that's correct.
Now you are the first female assistant police chief.
Yes.
What does that mean to you? What does that say? That you were the first canine handler, the first commander, now the first assistant police chief. What amount of, and I don't, maybe that's not the right word, but pressure put on you to kind of represent?
I think there's definitely pressure on anyone who gets any one of those assignments, whether it be a canine handler, whether it be a sergeant, commander, assistant chief. There is always that, you need to step up and show that you can do the job, and you need to be representing not only the community, but the police department, and fulfilling goals and doing a good job, because that is the reason why you're selected. It's one thing to be selected, it's another to do well in the job. Another thing it represents to me is showing other female officers, or even our young women and girls in the community, that they can be successful and they can achieve leadership roles, and really give them a goal to strive for. Even if it isn't in the law enforcement profession, it's something that they're seeking to do. They can see that other women can do it.
Now, you hold also a bachelor's of science degree in business management, and then a master's. Based off of the amount of work that you had in the department, where did you find the time to be able to go to school on top of all of these different positions that you held in the department?
There was certainly a lot of late nights or early mornings. When I went back to school to get my bachelor's, or first to get my associate's degree to start off, I was working our graveyard shift. And at the time we worked 10-hour shifts. So it started at 9 at night, it ended at 7 in the morning. And then I would go to Ventura College and start my class, go to class from 8 to 10, and then from 10 to 12. And then I would go home and sleep and come back to my shift. So it definitely was putting in a lot of outside hours to get those completed. I did all of my degrees while I was already here working at the police department. And those were just personal accomplishments that I wanted to do. I think education is so important, just to give yourself a worldly view of what's going on, to better assist you in your job, no matter what you're doing.
Now, from growing up in Oxnard to now, have you seen a huge shift in how the department is interacting with the public? And do you see room for improvement?
I definitely see a big shift, not only in our departments, but departments everywhere. Back when I first started, it was really still the closed off mindset of just the facts, nothing to see here, move along. There wasn't a whole lot of community input. Now, community input's mandatory. I mean, the only way we can solve the problems in the community is to have a partnership, have a dialogue, get input, understand what the concerns are from the community perspective. We really want the community to see us as their neighbors, see us as the people who are helping them solve the problems that maybe necessarily aren't police related or crime related, but quality of life issues. And that's just so important. In fact, I can't wait until a lot of the restrictions that we have now due to COVID are lifted and we can reintroduce ourselves to the community, have some community events, have open houses, have some of the things that we've done in the past, because that it has been a little bit difficult. I think everybody's a little zoomed out right now from having the online meetings, and we really can't wait to get in person and really start meeting and connecting again.
So, have you been back to the Southwinds community while being in the department? And if so, how does it feel to return back to the community that you grew up in now in law enforcement?
I have been back there. I've worked there in patrol. I go back to serve Thanksgiving dinner at Haycox Elementary when they do that every year. And I've gone back for some other special events in Southwinds. Back last weekend, we were out at Ormond Beach at an event sponsored by two of our council members for a beach cleanup. It's definitely a community I'm comfortable in. I enjoy that community. It's very vibrant and cultural, and it has a lot to offer. And I certainly don't want them to feel that they're underrepresented, because we do hear their voices and we do want to make sure their concerns are addressed as well.
Now, you know as well as I know, and then the community knows, the past year or two has been very rough when it comes to law enforcement. We had Chief Benitez on the show a few weeks ago, and we asked him his view on the whole George Floyd incident that occurred back east. What were your thoughts on that incident, and how does that make you feel as a member of the law enforcement community?
That incident was a devastating blow to law enforcement, because it portrayed every good, hardworking, law-abiding, law-following police officer in a bad light. That was a horrible tragedy and never should have happened. And there are so many things that probably many people have voiced that could have had avoided that entire incident. It's devastating. It was embarrassing as a police officer to see that, and to see the aftermath of that was absolutely horrible. But there have been things that have come out of that will make us better. The only way we can be better in the law enforcement community is to review incidents like that and make the changes that are necessary.
Now, as assistant police chief, what are your roles in the department?
Right now, I oversee the investigations and administrative bureaus, and that's all of our investigative units, everything from our property crimes, our narcotics units, to our major crime, robbery, and homicide units. And our investigative services bureau handles the personnel and training. So right now we have 24 vacancies in our officer positions. We are looking at recruiting and filling academy classes to make sure those vacancies are filled, those vacant positions are filled, which will allow us to, our patrol side, to reinstitute our neighborhood policing team. So that's one of my goals in the job that I'm in now. Looking for ways we can do things more efficiently, and with the resources that we have. I also oversee our professional standards unit, which handles our internal affairs, our policy and procedure, looking and making sure that we are doing everything to meet the guidelines that have been set with all the changes that have happened since George Floyd, providing the training to our officers to make sure incidents like that don't happen. Those are some of the things that I oversee right now.
Now, the internal affairs aspect of is it like the movies where you have a group of people come and they are, feared among the officers as they walk into the room, and nobody has to, what am I trying to look for is
There
Ultimately,
is there is a little bit of a stigma when you work internal affairs. But the reality of it is we are addressing not only complaints from the community, but also internal administrative, um, I don't know if you want to call them complaints, but reviews of officer actions and policy and procedure. And the job of the internal affairs sergeant is to look at it objectively. Was it a violation of policy? Does the officer need more training? Is it a misunderstanding of a procedure that's here at the police department in something that's handled and the community doesn't understand why we do something the way we do? So well, there is the stigma still attached when I think to internal affairs. It's definitely the necessary aspect of police work. We do need to look at how we do things. And when people bring complaints forward, we need to address the issue.
what are your goals as assistant police chief for the next year? Again, it's a little hard because of COVID, and we're hoping for restrictions to be lifted and the spread to slow down dramatically. Um, but what are those goals? Say that tomorrow COVID was gone, all the restrictions removed, and we were back to normal or somewhat of normal. What goals would you work to try to implement in the community and the department?
Definitely the first goal, like I mentioned, is to fill our vacant positions. Recruiting is very difficult when you try to do it just through social media or online events. So getting back out and sending our recruiting team and our officers to events happening in the city. We'd love to see our Strawberry Festival back. Love to see some of the events that we can send officers out to where they're having just interactions with the community and letting them know what they do and maybe having somebody interested in being a police officer. That's definitely a big push, is to get members of our community. We actually have had just interviewed 10 police officer applicants. Of those, 9 are fluent in Spanish, which is huge for us because we have a very large Spanish speaking community and we need officers out there that can communicate with them. So having 9 applicants that are fluent in Spanish is absolutely awesome. And they'll be set up to go to the academy in April. Another one of the goals that I would like to see is get back into our events in the community. The events that we hosted here at the police department, our spooktacular at Halloween time, maybe have an open house to give the community an opportunity to come in and see what we do. To re-engage our youth academy. We had a junior police academy. To get that started up this summer would be pretty amazing, especially since a lot of our youth have been in online classrooms. It'd be nice to have them come out and get some hands-on with our police canines, with our SWAT team, and have them doing something that's a little more interactive. Those are definitely 2 of the goals I'd like to see in the next year.
So, how does it feel that now you are in a position where you are the right hand or left hand of the chief of police and you get to help um, create policies for the department that advances the department in a positive way? How does that feel for you?
It's exciting, motivating, definitely. When I leave here, I want to know that I left the police department better than it was when I came here, and that I left it in the capable hands of people who come up after me to carry on the service that we do here. This community will always be important to me, even when I'm gone, and I want to make sure that they're left with the best police department in Ventura County.
That's a great goal and vision and legacy to leave behind. Um, how does your family feel that you are the assistant police chief? We've spoken with both Chief Benitez, we've spoken with former Chief Whitney. We talked about how their family is really sharing them with the Oxnard community. You know, you're on call, you're doing meetings, you're doing community events, you're doing outreach. How does your family feel that now you take on a more responsibility as assistant police chief versus when you were a commander?
There definitely is some give and take. Your family has to realize that there are times when you're coming home late or you're going to meetings on days that you would normally have off. Fortunately for me, I have a significant other that's willing to come out and, do some community service, and came out with me to the beach cleanup. Understands when I call last minute and say, hey, I'm going to be a little bit late, and is willing to cook dinner or to do the things around the house that maybe I would have done had I been home at a normal time. But they definitely share you, and there is that understanding that you have going into it, that that's going to happen. We have a lot of communication between us about, the things I do here at work, and how that you never really have a day off, so to speak. Your phone is always going off with something that's happening in the city, or somebody is notifying you of something that happened in the city. I think my phone's pretty much going off with a text message or a call most of the day and some of the night. So it's just something they get used to and they understand.
That makes me laugh, but um, I sit on multiple commissions that represents the city or the county, and I'm getting emails. Obviously, not as many emails and text messages and phone calls as you would. Um, but when you're asleep, do you ever get nudged like, "Hey, your phone's going off. Can you get up and before it fully wakes me up?"
No, I'm fortunate that I get the phone first. So there is a lot of, if I go somewhere, and even if I leave my office and I don't have my phone, there's that little fear of missing out. Oh my goodness, am I getting a text message that's really important and I should have had my phone with me? So it becomes an extension of you, so to speak.
Okay. Um, as the first, and I guess, and let me know how you feel about this, is being referred to as the first female assistant police chief. Um, I know how you said that, it's something that you represent to the community for all the other young women in the community, to be able to take on these roles. But is that something you really want to hear, is always being referred to as the first female assistant police chief? Or do you just want to be recognized as an individual that has this position?
I think the newness of that will wear off a little bit after I've been in the position. Um, you do have to celebrate firsts, I think, but you can't dwell on the fact that you're the first in any position, whether it be because you're female or any other reason. There is a time to celebrate that, and then it's get to work and do what you're in the position to do. I definitely think it's important in whatever role you are, and whatever capacity that your career or takes you, that you inspire other people to be their best self as well, and to reach down and provide the wisdom that you've learned in your position to them, to assist them to move forward. And that's what people have done for me, and that's certainly what I look forward to doing to others who are a little bit younger in their career, so to speak.
So how does it feel? Because I know you said during your time as an FTO, field training officer, that you still have a few of those trainees still in the department. You said one just recently retired as a commander, one just got promoted as a sergeant. How does it feel that um, they're looking at you for more guidance as in your role? And have you spoken with them and got their feelings, as saying like, hey, that used to be my FTO?
Well, it was funny. Our former commander, it was like, hey, he actually got promoted to commander before I did. And, hey, I'm proud of you and proud of what you accomplished. And he actually mentored me a little bit through the commander process and some of the roles that he had as a commander. So it's definitely a give and take. I've learned from people that I trained, and people who have trained me have learned a little bit from me. So I think it's definitely a mentorship both ways. I have spoken to the recently promoted sergeant. Definitely proud of her. She's currently the only female sergeant we have in our department. Um, And I have put myself out there as a mentor to anyone who is interested in, promoting or different, or even if it's just in the assignments that I've held, I've spoken to people going through promotional processes, not only with Oxnard, but with other departments. And I think it's something that you have to put forward so that other people can be successful as well.
Sounds good. Um, any advice to somebody who is thinking about a career in law enforcement that you could give?
Definitely education is the most important thing. Being able to write good documents, good reports, that's very important. Physical and fitness, absolutely crucial to getting through the academy. When you're physically fit going into an academy, it's just one less thing you have to worry about, the training there. Understanding what's going on in the world of law enforcement and in the world in general, and how that will affect you as a police officer, and really understanding and knowing the community that you want to go and work in, or the communities for the police department that you're applying to. That's crucial, especially in today's world of law enforcement.
So I'm kind of curious because now I'm thinking back of you said that you were part of the Reserve Academy through BC because of your friend, the whole buddy system going through it. Did your friend continue in law enforcement anywhere? Did she go with you in the reserves with Santa Paula, or how did that end up working out?
Actually, the first session, the first weekend session on the Saturday, we had to run the obstacle course for the first time. And she went over the chain link fence. And when she came down, she tore her ligament in her knee and was not able to continue. So although we started together, she wasn't able to finish that academy class. So she's currently, a funny thing, I hadn't seen her in years, and we reconnected after I got promoted, and she saw one of the Facebook posts of my promotion, and she's currently a nurse in the Palm Springs area.
Right on.
She's actually been working in one of the COVID units down there. So very, very busy.
Yeah, I can imagine. I know a lot of our healthcare workers here in Ventura County, and I commend them all, including our public safety personnel, for all the hard work that they're doing for our communities to keep them protected and going as best as possible. Any final comments that you want to share with the public? This is your time to go ahead and shine.
I'm excited and honored to be in this position. I look forward to representing the community. Looking forward to working with the community, and I think we can develop good partnerships to continue making Oxnard one of the best places. We have a lot of very amazing things in this community: the people, the culture, our beaches. We need to make this a great place to live for the people who live here, and that's everyone's responsibility. And I look forward to working with the community and doing that.
Chief, again, thank you very, very much for joining me in this conversation. This is actually the first time that we've gotten an opportunity to speak. And unfortunately, we have to meet this way. One day we will get back to in person, and I hope to actually be able to shake your hand one day. But it is a privilege of mine and an honor to be able to speak with you tonight. And so thank you for joining me, because I'm pretty sure you have a lot of other items to be taken care of, and I appreciate you taking the time to speak with me tonight.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Assistant Police Chief of the City of Oxnard, Denise Shadinger. Please follow the department's Facebook page for updates and information. And please, Chief, if somebody had more questions for you, how would they be able to get in contact with you?
Usually the most comfortable thing I found for people to do is to email me. A lot of people feel a little freer and have the ability to think of their questions in doing that. And that's denise.shadinger@oxnardpd.org. And my phone line, if you want a phone conversation, it's 805-385-7626.
Awesome. Again, Chief, thank you very much for joining me for this conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, please be sure to join us next week as we have the newly appointed Fire Chief Alexander Hamilton. And no, I do not believe he's going to bust out in song and dance, but might be a possibility. So you got to tune in right here at 4 o'clock on Oxnard Live. Also, be sure, if you did not hear already, we are expanding Oxnard Live to incorporate a Spanish edition of Oxnard Live. That would be every second and fourth Wednesday of the month at 6 p.m. with my good friend Adam Lopez as the host. So, por mi gente, un nuevo programa en español Oxnard Live. Comienza 10 de marzo a las 6. Sorry, my Spanish isn't 100%, but that's the best you're going to be able to get from me. So be sure to follow us on social media at Oxnard Live. Follow us on our website, oxnardlive.net, and Oxnard Live, all live and 100% real. Have a great night, everyone. Thank you, Chief.
Have a great night.